Wow! We are so back. We are so back. It has been a long time, man. I, I mean, I don't want to exaggerate what I've been through waiting for college football to come back, but like I think about people who got like maybe their plane went down in the 1920s in the Sahara Desert and they're crawling and crawling and crawling and they see something in the distance, they crawl towards it, and just as they think they might not make it, they think that with the last breath in their bodies, they realize, oh, I did it. I found it. I found a little bit of water. And though college football isn't back, but we got media days, we got people trying to remember where they are going to play now and who they're playing. We have controversies. We have apparently the sheriff's department now officially setting up an office on the University of Georgia campus. So a lot has happened since I've seen you all. I am joined to my, yeah, there it is. I remember now. Yep, there it is. To my right, the one, the only babyface assassins of Brock Vieira. How's everything going, Brock?
It's been going very good. I have been in the same state of limbo as you have been after draft season, now waiting for college football. It's been so long, and we've talked about the same storyline so much, and I just can't wait to dive into the players, into the prospects, into the potential of 2024, and know that whatever we say, reality is right around the corner.
Yeah. And of course, we're joined by our very special guest. And the last I checked, our yes, what is it? Yeah, FOTS, is that it? Yes. Last time I checked our FOTS friend of the show rankings, I think he's our number 3 ranked friend of the show, David.
What's going on, guys? Thanks for having me. I am in a similar spot. I'm sick of going back and forth with people on Twitter. I'm ready for the football season to finally kick off.
Yes. And I believe if last I checked, you managed to antagonize Kevin Durant. So well done. Now, admittedly, Kevin Durant is one of the most tuned in to what people are saying about him of all the superstars I've ever heard of. How he finds the time and energy and still be one of the greatest players of all time. Amazing. It makes you realize like what an amazing specimen he is, because I don't know if Jerry West could have done that, right? I mean, obviously he'd have to deal with that. There was no social media in Jerry West days, but think about what he does. The guy's up at 5 o'clock in the morning, putting up shots, practicing, working out, eating right, and then he manages to find 2-3 hours in the middle of the night to beef with strangers. Amazing.
I'll say this. Just like we see the media coming to each other's defense with Coach Prime recently, even if it is a slimy journalist, the media will defend their own. I got to defend my content creator brethren when KD takes a shot at him. I got to go after him.
Well, you've joined a very, very, very interesting group of individuals by joining the people who have beef with KD on various social media. So I'm going to ask you, since obviously you are plugged into the program in Colorado. I'm going to start with I won't call it a layup question, but when last we first met each other, I asked you about what defines success. What would it take? Obviously, the year prior to Prime, it was a 1-win program. Almost anything would have been progress. What is success going into this year, David?
Pretty much doubling down on a lot of the stuff that I wanted to see last year. I think at bare minimum, we need to reach a bowl game, and hopefully we can win that bowl game for the first time in 20 years. But that is the expectation, that we're going to have a winning record. I think that we saw a 3-game win improvement last year. Let's see another 3-game improvement minimum. But I think with a lot of the expectations that I had this past year, a lot of this had to do with, can we just have an average defense or an average offensive line? We were far from average in a lot of those areas this past year. My hope is that I was just a year early on some of these predictions in terms of where we'll be at with some positional play. But I think bare minimum, we want to see the team take another step towards developing that winning culture, putting the wins behind the hype this year. That's what you want to see. And of course, hopefully, if that's done, have a player or two drafted and in the finalist conversations for some of these awards at the end of the season.
Okay, got it. I'm going to let Brock fire a couple at you, and then we're going to take on the conference and go team by team and talk about some of the top games and top players in the conference. Yeah. Brock, what questions do you have for our very special guest, David, the KD hater? I'm kidding. He doesn't hate him. He was just getting in there, right? He's just getting feisty with him, which I love it.
Yeah.
But go ahead. What questions do you have?
Well, Dave, I think the biggest concern when it came to the Colorado football program from last year to this year was their offensive line. That was without a doubt. They've taken tremendous steps to improve them this year, but for someone that follows the team and covers the team so closely, what should we expect from the offensive line in 2024?
Yeah, I think you're going to see a better offensive line. Again, we really just have, upwards to go, so to speak. We were one of the worst offensive lines in college football last year. It was to the point where we were starting guys that were making a jump up from JUCO, or they were 280 pounds starting at guard. We have guys now that more so look the part and that come from a higher level of play and experience. So probably the biggest thing you'll see is that across the board, we do have a bigger offensive line, particularly at the guard position. So Justin Mayers, he was one of the top guards coming in to the portal class this year from UTEP. I think he's well over like 6'4", 200 or 320 pounds. He's going to help the run game so much. And then on the right side, we brought in Tyler Johnson from Houston. We have Tyler Brown, Kareem Harden, who's a JUCO guy that's been in here for over a year now, along with Khalil Benson, somebody who can play tackle and guard from Indiana. It's still a little bit up in the air what the right side of the offensive line is going to look like. But I think with the additions that we've brought in, the development that we've had on the team, our starting center this year is looking to be Hank Zelinskis, an in-house guy that Prime has recruited and brought in over a year ago, that beat out the transfers that they brought in at center. Phil Woldholt, coming over here from Oklahoma. He played in the NFL, I want to say, about 10 seasons, and experience on staff at Ole Miss and then at Oklahoma. It seems like he is bringing this line to, I think, a new level of play, a higher level of play this year. So, and combine that with Pat Shurmer, I think somebody who's going to emphasize a little bit more of a balanced approach with the offense this year. Again, it's kind of tough. When your line can't block pretty much in the pass or run, it's hard to figure out or have a somewhat decent looking run to pass ratio. But I think you'll see those things kind of fall more in line what's normal with decent, good college football offenses.
And that kind of leads into my second question, which is last year I thought it was a very interesting move when Deion Sanders decided to replace Sean Lewis with Pat Shurmer. As move I didn't quite agree with, but however, that's a thing of the past.
Yep.
How will Pat Shurmer evolve this offense to be effective in 2024? And do you have confidence, on a scale of 1 to 10%, what is your confidence in Shurmer and his abilities to get the job done?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that was clear after the season started is just there was a little bit of a disconnect between Sean Lewis and Shedeur Sanders with how they approached offense, what Shedor's strengths were versus what Sean Lewis wanted the offense to look like and how they wanted it to operate. I think we've had Pat Shurmer on the staff since last summer, but I think it was very clear as time went on that they saw the game very similarly. And so I think you're going to see the offense just look a little bit more functional. And I do think that while Pat Shurmer mainly throughout his career has been in the NFL, of course, I think that in some ways you kind of got to look at him with a fresh start, so to speak. because the college game is a little bit different from the NFL. But the biggest thing that I've tried to encourage my viewers or people who watch my channel, David Talks Buffs, with is that, Pat Shurmer, he's not an Andy Reid or Sean McVay, but I do think that he's competent. He's somebody that can script plays, that scripts plays. Sean Lewis famously did not script plays for the Buffs last year, and I think that created some issues, especially lack of adjustments in certain games in the second half. These things that you see the pros do, you script plays, you make second half adjustments, you mix up the personnel groupings quite a bit. Pat Shurmer comes from that Andy Reid tree that uses some pre-snap motion and tries to get the ball out of the hands of the quarterback quickly. You saw what he's done with quarterbacks like Sam Bradford or Case Keenum in the past. And I think one thing that excites me is that for the level of play, this is probably Pat Shurmer's most talented group from an offensive perspective that he's worked with in a really, really long time. But while I'm not expecting world-breaking numbers for the offense, I think what you'll see is a better functioning offense, one that emphasizes time of possession, one that's going to give the ability to Shedeur to kill or change the play at the line of scrimmage. Getting the Buffs into the best play possible, I think, is going to be an emphasis with the offense this year under Pat Shurmer.
And what are the playmakers outside of obviously the guys that we already know that I think is going to be a major addition for you guys this year is the transfer of LeJohntay Wessler, I believe from FAU, who's coming into Colorado. Can you talk about what does Wessler do well, and how do you think he's going to fit into this offense?
Yeah, he's another dynamic weapon. I think we've seen him on some preseason All-American lists for special teams as well. So he can return punts and kicks really well. He, I believe, had over 100 receptions last year and well over 1,000 yards. So a productive receiver that I think you've seen guys like last year, Xavier Weaver come in or Jimmy Horn come in and have really good seasons, coming up a level now to the Power 4 level. He's a explosive, twitchy, has a lot of agility, somebody that I think functions as a security blanket for Shedeur. And I think with the weapons that we've brought in at the wide receiver group, it yet again is one of the strengths of this group. We bring back Jimmy Horn. We still have Travis Hunter that's going to be playing on offense as many snaps as he can, even though I would personally want to change that up a little bit. We brought in Will Shepherd, that I feel like that traditional NFL X type of wide receiver. Again, coming over here from Vanderbilt. We got a lot of options here in the wide receiver group, and so it's going to be hard to double cover. And I could see LeJohntay Wessler as well as Jimmy Horn having a lot of success operating out of the slot for Shedeur this year.
Absolutely. And before I throw it back over to Bill, I got two more questions for you. On the defense side of the ball, there's really no questions about the talent within the DB room, but one of the major concerns is that Colorado cannot establish a pass rush last season. What steps have they taken this offseason in order to fix that, and do you think that they've done enough in order to build a consistent pass rush for the season?
Well, that's my hope, right? That we got, at least two deep with some edge rushers that are able to disrupt the pocket like that. Last year, of course, we had Jordan Dominic. But outside of that, it was pretty inconsistent, the amount of pressure and impact plays we were getting from that position group. And with Jordan Dominic now off to I believe, is it the Falcons? I forget where he ended up with as a UDFA, but we've completely revamped and brought in new bodies through the transfer portal at the edge room. So probably most notably is BJ Green, somebody who was very well-rounded, just as good in the pass rush as he is in run defense, which is huge, from ASU, somebody who is like an all Pac-12 level talent. We brought in a couple of edges from Pittsburgh, kind of like an extra, showing it to Pat Narduzzi with his comments a year ago. But Deion Hayes, an experienced edge that is a good pass rusher. Samuel Okunloa coming into, I believe, his third year now. I think he's a redshirt sophomore. Somebody who had 5-6 sacks or so in just part-time playing time, but was projecting to be a mainstay player for Pitt this year. Keaton Wade is somebody that has played well for Kentucky in spurts at the edge position, and another very young player. So you have those guys. You're also bringing in or bringing back guys that you've been developing. Taj McCoy, brought in this first high school recruiting class from Prime, seems to be making substantial steps. You also have somebody who is coming back for his second year with the Buffs, local guy, originally played at Missouri, Arden Walker, that I thought was one of our most improved players last year. So we do have a lot more guys that we've brought in this year with proven success and proven track record, proven play at the Power 4 level, whereas last year it was pretty much just Jordan Dominic and bringing in a bunch of guys to see who is hitting. So I do feel more confident about the pass rush this year. But yeah, it was something that was one of our weakest areas on the team last year. And I think that now we have some real competition for snaps.
I got one last question for you. Defensively, from scheme wise, it was clear what Charles Kelly was running was not working. He was getting beat all the time, getting beat underneath. You guys are getting spread and shred. It was a mess. To fix that, Kelly's gone. You guys bring in Robert Livingston, who has been with the Bengals organization for, I believe, 12 years, from like 2012 to the last season. What will Livingston bring to the Colorado team, and do you believe that he is the right solution for their defense?
Yeah, great question. So Robert Livingston, huge wild card on the team this year, coming in as DC. Granted, this is his first time calling plays as a defensive coordinator at the NFL or college level, but I think when you look at his track record in the NFL, able to stay with one organization, the Cincinnati Bengals, for overseeing multiple regime changes, the fact that he's stuck on an NFL staff, one in particular, that long, I think, again, the theme with our coordinators is competency. And I think that throughout what he's done, throughout his time at the Cincinnati Bengals, he has shown himself to be more than competent, more than qualified to take over as DC of a 4-8 football team last year in college football. I do have hopeful expectations. Again, we had one of the worst defenses in college football last year. So can we make a substantial jump from like around the 125th ranked defense in the country? Can we make a jump of 50 spots? That would be substantial. Can we limit ourselves to giving up 25, 26 points a game and, allowing our offense to still have enough time to go and not feel like they have to score literally every single drive? We'll just have to see. But I do think that he's running, to me, it sounds like he's running a more simplistic defense that, again, I feel like we have some better athletes this year, but it's a little bit more simple to where guys can just play their assignments. They're not, overthinking things. They're not getting confused on the coverages. I mean, so often last year, even with the personnel groups under Charles Kelly, I would not doubt that we had the most penalties for 12 men on the field last year. It was just undisciplined and a lot of confusion. Again, when you bring in an entire new team with a new defense and all of that, defense that is a little bit harder to learn, you have those issues. And I think one of the themes is get better athletes, dumb this thing down, simplify it a little bit, and allow them to make plays. I don't think, even though some people on my channel want to say, Dave, can you see this team giving up less than 17 points a game? I cannot see this defense as a top 10 defense in college football. But again, if we go from 125 or so to 70, I think that's a substantial improvement that should be talked about, even if we have some tough games.
Yes, less than 17 points a game probably means that you will have the Frank Broyles Award winner as your defensive coordinator if you get to under 17.
Bill,
In fact,
you're a
you
historian
get
on this. Have you ever seen a team go from 125th to then a top 20 defense the next year?
I'm trying to think. The closest I can think of might be East Carolina under Ruffin McNeil. I don't think they quite got to under 17 or whatever points a game, but they did a dramatic turnaround. A couple others I've seen. Air Force a couple of years ago, right? Right in your neck of the woods. Air Force went from being a not very good defense. I think the last 2 years they've been in the top 20, I think, in overall defense. I think they might have been in the top 12 or 13 in points per game. But yeah, 17. Yeah, you might want to back off from that as a prediction.
Yeah. I'd say, how about you just add 10 points to that?
There we go.
I think that's reasonable.
That is right. Under 27 is certainly reasonable. I have a couple of questions as well. So I will ask you some things about particular games. Now, obviously, you still have some traditional rivalries left, despite the things that have happened. And then I guess maybe you'll develop some new ones also on top. So I will walk through some of the teams that I'm looking at. So clearly Cincinnati, right? That's new. That's new in so many different ways. You'll get to go to beautiful Central Florida. That'll be interesting. Now you've got Arizona, which is a team I really like on the schedule this year.
Oh, yes.
That team. I wouldn't be surprised if Arizona ends up being a double-digit win team this year. I think they're one of the better teams in the country. You'll face Utah this year. These are sort of some of the teams that you probably are a little less familiar with.
With 30-year-old Cam Rising, keep that in mind that you're going to be playing.
Yes, and of course,
the old guard at quarterback.
Right, and of course, University of Houston as well. Of the newcomers to the conference, is there one that you are particularly interested in? One, in seeing your team face, and two, maybe scares you a little.
Yeah, great question. I think I've marked 7 games on CU's schedule that I view as more so toss-up games, if anything. Like, I could see them going either way. I think, again, a lot of it depends on how improved the line plays are for CU. We'll just have to see. But I'm very interested in seeing how they perform on the road, 2 time zones over in Orlando, Florida, against UCF. Contrary to some blue blood college football fans, I think Gus Malzahn is a really good coach, and I think he's going to get the best out of KJ Jefferson. And I could see UCF being one of those dark horse teams in the conference to make a lot of noise this year. I think another litmus test for how this team has progressed or developed, that being CU, is how we perform against Utah this year. Yes, they're coming back with Cam Rising. He's missed a year of football. Is he going to look the same after that just devastating knee injury that he had? We see some players bounce back from that. We see other players never look the same. How's Utah going to look at the quarterback position? I think that's going to be the key for their team, because you saw last year, you could say they were a quarterback away, and it was an extremely disappointing season. We're not used to seeing, Utah perform like that. So, also, Utah bringing in Dorian Singer, somebody who didn't really make a lot of noise from USC after transferring there from Arizona and being one of the best receivers in the country. Was it just the USC environment? Can he find his game back at Utah? We'll have to see. But I think my big upset that I have right now for CU is beating Utah at home. I think that this is finally the year we get the monkey off the back. But I don't disagree with Utah being one of the favorites with Vegas to win the championship. They've proved it. They've been the best team in the Pac-12 consistently for the last handful of years. And I think a lot of Big 12 fans, I guess, it's kind of funny to me. I still know the Big 12 teams or the Pac-12 teams coming over here the best, whereas the Big 12 fans and guys who cover beat reporters, all that, they know the Big 12 the best. And so I think I might be a little bit biased because I know those teams the best, but I do think Utah is in position to establish themselves as the alpha in this conference, as much as that might frustrate so many Big 12 fans. Kyle Winningham has proven and done it. But what makes this really exciting is that you got a ton of teams that I think are right there where you can see scenarios, including my Buffs. I got to throw that out there. There are scenarios where my Buffs find themselves in a title game this year.
Okay.
Interesting.
That's exciting. Now, there are some really, as always, some really interesting pro prospects in this particular conference.
Yeah.
There are some people who think that, Shedeur himself has a shot at being top 5. I think most people say top 10, but at least some people say top 5. And a few are saying the first player taken in the next draft.
Yeah.
The Big 12 has several other players that I think are really interesting. A guy that you'll get to see this year who I fell in love with back when he was still a Viking at Portland State is Cameron Skatebo, and now he's made his way to Arizona State. So everyone gets a chance to see him now. And he got on me for comparing him to like Danny Woodhead and such. And he said, like, why not be comparing me to white guys? It's like, you're right. So Amir Abdullah, Brian Westbrook, yes, he's got all that kind of multiple abilities to hurt you in the return game. He catches the ball extremely well. They're going to line him up in the slot, even out wide at times.
Mm-hmm.
And he is your classic sort of modern NFL quarterback. Mm-hmm. Willie Fritz is one of those great turnaround artists. Houston got Holgersoned a little bit, and now we saw what Willie Fritz did at Tulane. Now he has way more resources, way more money, way more talent right there in that East Texas pocket where there's just senseless numbers of great football players. Now, I don't think it happens for him this year at Houston, but watch out a year or two from now. Donovan Smith, former Texas Tech quarterback, of course, has landed there. He's another guy with a great bounce back. You mentioned KJ Jefferson. My dark horse quarterback to threaten to be, second or maybe third team all conference is Donovan Smith. He's a guy that has a certain amount of talent. Cincinnati, good luck. BYU had a surprisingly pedestrian looking team last year. We'll see if that was a one-off. Or if that's maybe the new normal for BYU. That coaching matters a lot to a program like that one. And they aren't being coached as well, unfortunately, as they used to be. But who are some of your favorite prospects, some of your favorite pro prospects that you see in this conference this year, David?
Yeah, of course. You've already talked about KJ Jefferson. I think he's one of the more electric players in the conference. I'm really looking forward to seeing him play this year. Let's go to the state of Kansas. I think that there's a lot of things to keep your eye on in that state this year. We can start with, of course, Jalen Daniels. If he's able to stay healthy, you can totally see Kansas winning the conference. I think they got the ability to do that. Dynamic, electric quarterback. Is this the year he stays healthy? When we go to Kansas State, returning, I think about 80% of their defense is going to be great. Will Howard's out of there now. How is Avery Johnson, a young, dynamic quarterback, going to step into that role this year? We'll have to see, but he's another quarterback in this conference that I think has a lot of good potential and can be assisted by a really solid running game with DJ Gins there. And of course, Dylan Edwards, who was on our Buffs last year, my Buffs last year, transferred back home to Kansas at Kansas State now. So I think that they're going to be a really hard out in this conference as well. But those are two programs and two quarterbacks over at Kansas and Kansas State that I'm really looking forward to seeing. And then, of course, Noah Fafita. He's kind of been all over when you've seen and looked at quarterback rankings in the Big 12 or with college football as a whole, kind of where he's been at. You've seen him ranked above, quarterbacks such as Shedeur Sanders, in certain rankings are below him. I don't know. I guess I just want to see it a little bit with the new coach with Jed Fish coming out there, Brett Brennan. That's right. Brett Brennan over there, seeing how he performs this year with this regime change, coaching change. But could the Big 12 become that, the conference of quarterbacks, so often that they would call the Pac-12? We'll have to see, but I think that there's a lot of really good talent. The quarterback that you mentioned from Baylor, what was his name?
Well,
did you mention
it
him?
used to be, hold on, let me see. I think Bohannon is now at BYU. Let me see if I can track down where there's a lot of moving pieces.
Not Shapen, right?
Yes, Shapen. There we go. Yep, that's correct.
Shapen's at BYU, and then
no, Bohannon's at BYU. Shapen, I think, is still at Baylor.
Oh, I thought they brought in a new quarterback.
They might have.
They probably did.
The guy from Toledo, right? Daquan
Finn. Yeah. You're right.
Yeah.
You are correct. It's hold on.
I thought Shapen maybe went to like Mississippi State or something like that. Maybe I'm just making that up.
No, you're probably not. I'm trying to remember where they all ended. Okay, let's see.
So many names, so little time.
Yeah, I know. So I'm trying to remember where they all landed. Because BYU had huge problems at quarterback last year. And I know they brought in Bohannon, who used to be at Baylor also. And they probably brought in several transfer quarterbacks, which would be wise because they didn't have quarterbacks. That was not a thing they did last year.
Yeah, Shapen at Mississippi State, Daquan Finn at Baylor.
Yeah, there you go. Yes, Daquan Finn, who is a really good athlete with sometimes sort of coming and going with the quarterback mechanics. So we'll see if they're able to. He's one of those guys that has that sort of loopy, wide elbow kind of action sometimes, but maybe they can. His talent's there, though. He's a talented guy. They'll have to do some work, I think, a little bit on that. I think their current projected starter is still Jeff Retzlaff, though. I think is who they're thinking.
Oh, okay.
As at least for the moment. Now, that may not hold. Yeah.
Just like I believe one team that I just have very low expectations for, and it has to do with a lot of their quarterback position, is Arizona State. I don't know if Jeff Sims has been announced as the starter, but if you're starting Jeff Sims, I just don't have confidence. I mean, how many schools is it going to take to get Jeff Sims right? I don't know if Arizona is the right program for that. But like you said, they do have Scadaboo, and maybe they can rely on him quite a bit. But I think going from Jaden Rashada down to Jeff Sims is going to be a tough run for the Sun Devils.
Yeah, that's not what you want to do as a program. You don't want to do that. You don't build that into your plan. No. It's a little like thinking you're about to walk out of your house, go to your driveway. There's a beautifully maintained cherry like near mint 63 split window Corvette with the fuel injections, 375 horsepower overhead cam. And you walk out instead, it's a 73 Vega, and it leaks oil. So we'll see, as you said, if indeed. Here's what I'll say about Jeff Sims. Once again, tough guy. He took some wicked shots in his career and got up and kept playing. I'm also very interested to see. We mentioned pass rush at your particular institution, and you said the whole conference of quarterbacks thing. Which was sort of the ACC in the most recent, I guess, year with the Pac-12 sort of packing it in. And now the Big 12 has a shot at it, but I want to see who becomes the conference of pass rushers. And that's what I want to see. The Pac-12 had some good pass rushers last year. There's some good running backs, obviously, in this conference. Ollie Gordon, the third, was a Doak Walker Award winner with over 1,700 rushing yards, 21 touchdowns. Also, just for fun, 350 yards in receiving and another touchdown. So another one of those sort of modern versions of the current NFL running back. This might be the conference of wide receivers also. You mentioned the return of Dorian Singer, but you've got Trattoria. There we go. McMillan, who, sort of a poor man's Drew London kind of.
Drake London.
That's what I meant, Drake. He's out there doing his thing. And you've got sort of the cornerback version of him at Arizona in Tacario Davis. Now, we'll see if he's able to sort of break down against some of the smaller, quicker receivers, but he's one of those, classic Seattle corners, they call them. Tyler Onyedem, the defensive tackle from Iowa State, is a guy that I think the NFL is going to like a lot. You mentioned Kansas. They've got a running back in Devin Neal that I like a great deal. You talked about Fafita. Rocco Becht is a guy who we've seen a little bit of. If he takes the big jump at quarterback, Iowa State might get better. Tosh Brooks is a really good running back also at Texas Tech. But I'm noticing there's not a lot of wow pass rushers, right? Steve Linton is a solid one at Baylor. Dalen Dotson is a guy who I think has a chance to be a mid-rounder coming out of UCF. Garmin Randolph is also at Baylor. And then there's Nana Osafa-Mensah at TCU. Who else is actually a pass rusher worth mentioning in the conference, though? That's not a lot. You know what I mean? There's some schools in the SEC that have that number of draftable pass rushers on their depth chart. So tell me what you foresee, not just from Colorado, but do you think there will be a pass rusher who emerges as maybe a day one prospect?
Oh, wow. Man. Well, if I can speak to the Buffs, I don't think we have a day one guy in the edge group. Maybe BJ Green will go and get 15 sacks, and maybe that changes. But one could only hope, right? But I was about to say, Bill, when you were naming that or talking about the lack of big time pass rushers, maybe this continues to look like the Big 12 that we've been accustomed to, where there's a lot of points scored. The leads can change 5 times in the fourth quarter before it's all final, and we'll see a lot of entertaining, high scoring football. But yeah, right now I'm not too educated, to be honest. Again, outside of some of the pass rushers that we've brought in versus some of the defenses that we'll be facing with returning players, but I do know that hey, there are a lot of traditionally good defenses that we're going up against. Oklahoma State, Kansas State, I know have been talked about as having, again, predicted to have some of the best defense in the conference this year. But I really do wonder if we're going to see a lot of high scoring and an emphasis more on the offensive side of the football as a whole. And yeah, wondering what your guys' thoughts are on that.
Well, I'll ask Brock sort of the same question. When you look at the Big 12, Brock, do you see any pass rushers you think, oh, yeah, that guy could end up being a top 100, maybe a top 50 pick?
A few top 100s, maybe 1 or 2 guys that can go into the top 50. Grant, I can't remember his first name, from UCF, is the guy that I have kind of listed. Actually, now that I have you guys here, let me just pull up my list that I graciously wrote down to, not forget. So give me 1 second.
Not a problem.
Yeah. Turns out life is a lot easier when you write things down. Did not know that.
Yes.
Yeah. That's one of those great life lessons you can take with you any place.
Yeah. It's just literally write it down. So I had, oh no, not Grant. Sorry, I apologize. Malachi Lawrence from UCF, and Jeremy Robinson. I don't know if that's the right spelling. For Kansas is guys that I have as up and comers. So we'll more like we'll see. But I would say my most solid guaranteed top 50 guys would probably have to be Jacob Manu from Arizona and Tyler Batty from BYU. And even then, I'm still like, about. I'm really not that confident in this pass rushing class. It's weird. I think that defensively, the Big 12 has studs at every position except edge rusher. It's one of those weird conundrums. And like I said, Manu and Batty, I think they're the best of the best, but I'm not even sure if they break into that top 50. And I think they need to have spectacular seasons from what we're projecting in order to do so.
Got it. So my next question for you, David, is particular games, and they don't have to be Buffalo games, but I assume at least one or two of them will be. But what are the maybe top, say, 4 or 5 games that you want to watch in the conference?
Oh man, that's a great question. I'm gonna have to look this up right now. Big 12 games, and I can kind of go through it. But there are a couple on Colorado's schedule that I think, yes, I'm looking forward to all of them. But of course, I think Nebraska week 2, that's going to be great. I do have that as a win. Again, it's been over 5,000 days since this program has beaten CU. I'm just not picking Nebraska until that happens, whenever that may be. But we'll be going against a true freshman quarterback, and hopefully we can benefit from having them early on the schedule rather than late if we were in the same conference. So really looking forward to that matchup. That is the premier game of the year. That means the most to get that win. Then everything else comes secondary. That's still the case. And again, I'm really looking forward to the UCF game, the battle of the black and gold. Florida's become a hotbed recruiting state for us, so that's going to have a lot of stuff on the line for us out there. And then another game that I'm looking forward to, returning to the old Big 12, has been Kansas State coming in here, kind of renewing that rivalry a little bit. It's got some new or renewed blood, bad blood, so to speak, with one of our best players last year, Dylan Edwards, transferring out to Kansas State. So that adds some personal feelings back to the rivalry again, which I think is really exciting. And again, with CU's time in the Pac-12, we've just been so bad. We haven't really had the opportunity to develop real rivalries over the last 12, 13 years. So the fact that we can come into the Big 12 and kind of pick some of these rivalries back where we left off years ago, I think can do wonders for the fan base, for the Big 12 fans, all of that. But let me go ahead and bring up some of the Big 12 matchups here. Of course, want to see how Kansas and Kansas State, they play this year, right? Like,
yes, they do.
They should play each other. I think that they're two of the best teams in the conference, no doubt about it. I mentioned UCF, Colorado. I will also say I think that this could be another really interesting matchup with UCF, just to see kind of where the Big 12 is at compared to the SEC, how they play their matchup against Florida. Some people think that this could be Napier's last year over at Florida. And if you start out the gate and, early in the season in the non-conference part, losing to UCF, not really an in-state rival, but somebody, I guess, who could become that, that could be very noteworthy, as well as, I believe, lastly, the Holy War should be on this year, if I remember correctly, between BYU and Utah. That is probably the game that I'm looking most forward to watching outside of anything Colorado related. So, having the Holy War back in the state of Utah is something that I think a lot of people have forgotten about. But this is going to be very good for the conference as a whole.
Yeah, it's one of those house divided kind of rivalries. There are some literal households that just don't talk to each other for a few days in that state because, there are some people who can't until the game's over, just cannot relate to you if you went to that other school. It is one of the underrated, nasty rivalries in all of
Yes,
college football.
nasty.
There's some spice to that rivalry, despite the fact that people think of those both as kind of white bread programs, sometimes literally. There still is there's some zing to that particular rivalry. I've seen some stuff, not just on message boards, but occasionally people getting in each other's kitchens, in person occasionally around that game. I'll ask you also, same thing, Brock. What are your games that you've sort of circled that you are definitely going to watch? And maybe you and I will break down X's and O's wise on College Football Forecast.
I think David kind of covered most of them. I'm looking forward to, honestly, the biggest game for me and in Colorado and in general, just because of who I've talked to about it, is going to be the Rocky Mountain Showdown between Colorado and Colorado State. Obviously, we know what happened last year. The game typically held in Denver is now going to be in Fort Collins for the first time in quite a long time. So you already have the juice for that. I've actually spoken to Jack Howell, and he's a legacy player whose dad played at Colorado State. He is super excited for this game. Torrey Horton had similar statements. Jay Norvell had similar statements. And I think that whenever you have an opportunity to stake claim to your home state, it's always going to be intense. I think the fact that it's in Fort Collins makes it even more intense based on what we saw last year. Fort Collins is an agricultural town. It filled with a lot of hardworking blue-collar people that love to root for their Rams. I think it's the perfect type of environment to see the mental toughness of the Buffaloes. And when we talk about college football playoffs, right, I think this is going to be a perfect example to see how far away is a Group of 5 team compared to a Power 5 team in terms of talent and scheme. So I think for so many reasons, Rocky Mountain Showdown is the number one game I have marked down, this season. Another game that I would have to put on there when it comes to the Big 12, I'm really excited to see, I believe it's Arizona and Kansas. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I believe they played each other this year, and those teams represent two programs that were in the gutter, to put it lightly, 3 years ago. Two head coaches came in, completely turned the storylines around. There's had some coaches leave. Obviously, Brett is now the new head coach at Arizona. Jeff Grimes, the former Baylor offensive coordinator, is now the offensive coordinator at Kansas. We'll see how Daniels for Kansas bounces back from his injury. They have studs all over that Kansas team. Same thing with Arizona. Both teams have really good quarterbacks, really good wide receivers, proficient running games, and underrated defenses. Arizona's going through a bit of a change because Johnny Nansen went over to Texas. But with that being said, I think those two teams are leading the revolution in a modern era of college football. I think that matchup is really going to help determine how future coaches and future programs operate in terms of rebuilds. So that's another game that I'm really looking forward to.
Got it. I'll fire off a couple that I'm interested in. So one of the conference newcomers, of course, is University of Houston. We talked about they're making a coaching change. I'm a huge Willie Fritz fan, as I've said on, several occasions. For anyone who's watched College Football Forecast, I've thrown good number of flowers at the feet of one Willie Fritz. I'll start with the non-conference game. I'm shocked that Brock didn't mention. They kick off on the 31st with UNLV. Which
that is the Kansas game or the Houston game?
Houston.
Ah, that's right. And they play in Houston too, I believe.
Yes, correct. So that, to me, it's a huge measuring stick for both programs.
Yes.
If Houston is going to get in position for a bowl game, that's kind of a win they need. And then obviously for UNLV, if they're showing everybody that, this is not your dad's or even your older brother's UNLV, though Houston might not be I guess technically speaking, they are a Power 4 or whatever it is, the number is, team, and a win there would be a big feather in their caps. Then I'm also circling the Houston game. The Oklahoma game against Houston. That is another big measuring stick game. Obviously, they're waving goodbye to Oklahoma, but saying hello to Oklahoma at the same time. For those that have long memories, they played each other on a semi-regular basis back when one was in the Southwestern Conference and one was in the Big Eight, for those who are old enough to remember, but they would play every few years. And the other one that I have circled is another in-state rivalry with TCU. Texas Christian, which also used to be in the old Southwestern Conference with them many, many moons ago, but they get to renew their rivalry with one in one conference and one in another. Once again, to me, that's a big measuring stick game for both of those teams. And if Willie Fritz is, say, goes in October 4th with only maybe 2 losses and 1, 2, 3, 4 wins, or wait, I'm doing the math right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so I've only lost 1 game. If that's a 1-loss team going into that game, though Amelia is not super likely, but it's not impossible. They could be on their way, well, obviously to a bowl game, but maybe even a little bit beyond just making a bowl game. I don't like them against Utah. I don't like them against Kansas or Kansas State or Arizona. So they have a rough stretch towards the end. They have a shot at Baylor and they have a shot at BYU. So, yeah, they have a shot at 6 wins. And Willie Fritz, like I said, is one of the great turnaround artists, I think, in all of college football. So watch out for Willie Fritz to make a little bit of noise.
Y'all want to hear a theory I have about Big 12 coaches right now?
Let's do it.
Always.
Okay, so I think right now LSU is keeping a close eye on Willie Fritz in Houston in case they have to kick Brian Kelly to the curb in 3 years.
Oh.
So I would like to. So I'm gonna go on one of my classic tirades. I want to get you guys' opinions on these things. So the reason why I say that is because obviously he had tremendous success at Tulane, won New Year's Six bowl game, won conference championship, so on and so forth. He's recruited the area well. He's well known by high school coaches in the area, and from what I've been hearing, he doesn't really have like a negative reputation by anyone's standards.
Yeah, everybody likes Willie Fritz pretty much, yes.
Yeah, exactly. I think that if Willie Fritz has success in Houston, LSU's gonna grab him because now you have a guy that's a known solid recruiter in Louisiana and Texas. So that's why I think LSU is monitoring Fritz closely. I also think Georgia Tech is monitoring Deion very closly. I think they want to bring Deion back to the ATL. I know that's not what you want to hear, David. I understand. I totally am with you. But I think that they're monitoring him very closely to see what he does.
That's okay. After this year, people talking about Georgia Tech poaching CU coach, that ain't going to happen, man. That ain't going to happen. Too comfortable out here.
Atlanta got some dough. That's the problem. They got the DOUGH. But I think that there is a feeling within the Atlanta community that they can bring Deion Sanders back to Atlanta. The state of Georgia in general will be able to basically control the South in terms of football talent. Now, of course, conference realignment will determine everything, what that looks like in a couple of years. But with all that being said, I think Colorado has had their eyes on someone else. And even though he just got named head coach in waiting, I think you guys are keeping a very close eye on Morgan Scalley at Utah.
Oh, very interesting.
Yes.
Well, if we got to go in that direction, I'll never complain about getting somebody off the Kyle Whittingham coaching tree.
Exactly. I don't think Kyle's going to hang it up anytime soon. My last kind of little tidbit that I want to, well, 2 actually, little tidbits that I want to throw out there is that I think a Power 5 team to be determined, probably from the Big Ten, is keying in on Chris Kleiman at Kansas State. Yeah. And then my last one I would have to say is I think Lance Leipold is coaching in the SEC before 2026.
Would not surprise me.
You guys want to guess which team I'm thinking that he's going to go to?
Florida?
Nope. Want to guess again? But you're close.
Not Florida. Not Alabama.
Nope, not Bama. but even closer.
Well, you already gave up the LSU prediction. That
you already gave LSU prediction. So I'm telling you who else. Okay, so Tennessee.
Auburn loves to roll through coaches. Hugh Freeze, we find himself in another scandal by then.
Bingo. It's out. I think Leipold goes to Auburn before 2026.
Oh, okay, got it. Yeah,
I
that doesn't sound crazy when you say it.
yeah. Hugh Freeze losing to New Mexico State, I think, soured a lot of people, and they just hired Charles Kelly to be a defensive coordinator. So we already know what the Tigers' defense is gonna look like in 2024. So I think they can him in 2025, and then I think they bring in Leipold.
I love that.
But I like to put my predictions for many years later out there here on August 11th, 2024.
I want to hit on one or two more things, and then we will bid David adieu. So we talked about what success looks like.
Yeah.
If for some reason things do not pan out as hoped, how long we had the honeymoon last year, and now it's, did you remember to cut up the oranges for soccer practice year? How long is, the Deion effect is big. It's helped generate interest. But if the increase in wins is just one or two, how long before people start actually like grumbling, complaining, and maybe it's time hubby sleeps on the couch?
That's a great question. The Colorado fan base is long suffering, and we've shown ourselves to be patient with the coaches that have been willing to stick around. We can, I guess most recently, we had Carl Durrell here for 3 seasons. I think minimally, even if things don't go according to expectation or hopes this year, I don't think we'll be firing Deion Sanders unless something super disastrous has to happen. Now, people want to talk about this program for some reason. A journalist, I can't remember his name, put out this whole article on Athlon Sports about how the team is riddled with guns because they went through the secondary talking about who's the most strapped. That idiot did not realize that means who's the best cover corner. So we actually have 0 arrests on the team since Coach Prime has taken over, as opposed to Georgia. But anyways, this is not a dirty program that's being run. We have our highest GPA ever collectively as a football team under Coach Prime. And again, no arrests. So this has been a team that has performed well in the classroom, that has not been getting in trouble off the field. And when you have those 2 pieces of criteria met in college football, plus hopefully incremental winning, even if it only is a game or 2 an improvement, I think there's going to be Coach Prime is still going to be given the keys to build this thing how he wants. Again, that's why I thought that his pairing with Colorado was so unique and special, because we were allowing him control that a lot of other Power 4 schools weren't comfortable giving. And Deion Sanders fans might not be patient, but Colorado Buffalo fans are patient. And it takes a lot to get boosters, donors, all of that, all on the same page, regents, to fire a coach, especially on one, in Prime's case, that is a 5-year. Well, you signed a 5-year contract, and you just don't see CU move on from coaches like that with years remaining on their deal.
Yeah, and that's one reason you do sign a large, long-term contract, is to make sure you get the time to put in your culture, your coaches, your get your players together, which nowadays is different from the old days. Some people say it's easier because there's quote unquote free agency, but it also means that you're losing players more often too. Yeah. It's not just a one-way street. You're just gathering players. No, there's people also getting your players to go other places as well. You just mentioned Dylan Edwards. My last prepared question, and some other stuff will probably occur to me as we continue to talk, is about the state of Colorado high school football and the recruitment of high school players coming up from, Cherry Creek and Columbine and Mullen and all the other, schools, Viator and wherever. Tell me about how everyone knew that Prime was going to get, transfer portal kids. And he did, especially the first year. He set a record. Not as many this year. Tell me about how is the in-state recruitment for high school players going, and where do you think that's going in the future?
I think it's always under Coach Prime. It's going to be something where you see maybe a few guys from Colorado stay in state and move up to Boulder for their college career, but I do think that it's always going to be secondary compared to Florida, Texas, Georgia, and Louisiana. Those have been states that we've really been targeting. Most of our staff is connected in those states as well. But again, Colorado high school football talent, it's pretty hit or miss from year to year. We have had, like for instance, we had Zane D'Souza, one of the number 3 player in the state, tight end out of Loveland, commit to the Buffs. He's rated an 86 3-star overall and number 3 player in the state. So this isn't a college recruiting hotbed like some of those other states that I mentioned. But Hank Zielinskis, our starting center, he is somebody that has come from Denver. We're talking about Arden Walker, who has returned here from Missouri. He is a Cherry Creek guy, I believe. So you do every now and then you'll have a big time prospect come out of the state, but it's not every year. And it's a state that more so brings a lot of those developmental type prospects, guys who might take 2-3 years before you start to see return on the investment. And Coach Prime, for right now, has made it very clear. They want to recruit freshmen who are ready to play early rather than later. They played 20 true freshmen last year. I don't think you'll see as many play this year as we are returning, particularly on offense, probably 75% or so of our production. But might I just throw this out there? Peyton Manning's oldest son is now entering junior high, so we're just a few years, out from a lot of recruiting buzz with him, unless they just want to make the move down to Newman, like all the other Mannings seem to do in Louisiana. But for right now, he's here, and he might be the next really hot ticket item in Colorado recruiting.
That's an exciting possibility.
Yeah.
Now, when you're recruiting like 8th and 7th and 8th graders, that's a tricky deal, obviously, for a lot of reasons. But we saw David Sills theoretically get signed to USC. I think
he had 2 catches today on my Broncos.
Yes. Like, it's funny, as the turntables will turn or whatever. But it was funny to see, this. I think it was a record at the time for the youngest player ever, a D1 program, at least I think any program that ever offered a football player. I think he was 12 at the time. But do you think as the program grows its in-state presence, and as you said, it may not be a hotbed of recruiting the way that California, Texas, Florida, Georgia, Louisiana are, even Arkansas, but you've got a couple of major population centers. You do have a couple of programs that do produce Division I players. Maybe once again, I mean, Nevada is obviously a state that's now put itself on the map as a recruiting hotbed. In fact, I guess that might be a good question for both of you to answer. Now that UNLV is becoming a place where they're starting to keep some of their in-state talent, which never used to happen at one point. I mean, all the good players in Nevada would end up in places like Oklahoma and Texas and USC. And now you see what they're doing. One is, I wonder if you might see a school like Colorado, which is not that far away from Nevada, maybe try to get some of that talent that's in Las Vegas. And then 2, is it possible that the rise of Colorado's college program might also, as sort of a trickle up or whatever direction it would be, help Colorado's high school football to also raise its profile?
I would absolutely love for that to happen. No doubt about it. And I think if you do have a premier football team in the state at the collegiate level, uh, it's got to help. I think, especially now in today's age, where, for instance, Dylan Raiola, I think, played for 4 different high schools
Yes.
throughout his high school
Correct.
career. You see players change all the time, and I think that programs like Fowler Christian, Cherry Creek, they do have a lot to offer from that type of development. Heck, I mean, we even had Beckham Kritza, 4-star quarterback, roll out of Boulder last year, ended up committing to Penn State. So, from every few years, you can get a really good prospect coming through here. I do know that, and I feel like it will be the case for Colorado if they are going to return to national prominency, making now a college football playoff, just like they did under Coach Mack years ago when they won that national title in 1990 against Notre Dame. They got to have a national recruiting reach, and you're getting your best players from at least that era. You're getting them from Houston. You're getting them from Los Angeles. Like all over Texas. That has to be the primary strategy for CU. But if a guy like Christian McCaffrey comes up, they cannot allow a prospect like that to go out of state again. And I think with Colorado, and as long as things continue to work their way up, you're going to see us be able to hold on to those guys that put themselves on the map in terms of the top 200 or 100 players in high school football.
Okay. That is the last of my questions. Brock, do you have another question for our amazing host, guest? There it is, Mr. David Neal, a.k.a. David Talks Bucks.
Yeah.
I got one last question for you, man. What is your floor and what is your ceiling? No. Take that. Let's get more specific. What is your prediction on wins and losses this year for Colorado? Okay. And then follow-up question on a percentage-wise, for 50 being halfway, of course, 40 being less than confident, and anything but 50 being more confident. How confident are you that Colorado can make the CFP in 2024?
I'll probably give it like a 20% making the college football playoff. There's always right now, I feel like the Big 12 is the conference of parity. I think that there's a lot of teams that could emerge as champion. I could see scenarios happening all over the conference with that. But right now, as I opened up with, I think I was just a year too early with a lot of my hopes. So I'm just going to double down on my record prediction last year. I had them going 8-4. I think this year I could see a 4-game jump this year with us going from 1-11 to 4-8 to hopefully 8-4 this year. That's my expectation. And I've kind of changed throughout this offseason on which teams I see us winning or losing to. But I think that Coach Prime has allowed us to skip the first stage of complete rebuild, which is just getting absolutely blown out by all the teams that we play. We kind of moved to phase 2, which was losing a lot of single-digit games last year outside of the Oregon blowout and the Washington State blowout. The year previous, our average margin of loss was close to 30 points in 2022, and that was significantly decreased last year, where we saw most of the games decided by one possession or so. So I think you will see Colorado winning some more of those close games this year. That's kind of the third stage in my college football rebuilding stages. Stage 3 is you win some more of those single-digit games. And then stage 4, you just start dominating, right? But you might be in stage 3 for a year or two. That's my hope, is that we see Colorado win some of these closer games. So I got us at 8-4. I think the range, this isn't anything hot takey, but I think the floor for this team is 6 wins. I do think that you'll see this team win 7 games. I think that will happen. And of course, maybe the defense is better than I expect, or maybe the offensive line isn't just average within the conference, but we get an above average line, that could really change things to where I could see us, winning 10 games. But right now I got us at 8-4 with, I think 5-4 in conference, somewhere around 500 in conference, I think is kind of where you'll see us.
Gotcha. And actually, I do have one more question. This will be my last question. How many first rounders does Colorado send to the NFL in this draft?
Oh, we got two. We got Shador Sanders and we got Travis Hunter. My hope would be that we have probably 6 draft picks or so, 5 or 6 draft picks throughout the entire draft. I don't know if we got a day one guy outside of those two. They're pretty special. They're why I could see us doubling our win total. Primarily has to do with Shador Sanders and Travis Hunter. But I could see some guys, like I mentioned, BJ Green or Deion Hayes, or maybe a Preston Hodge, one of the top cornerbacks in the portal this year, transfer from Liberty, that is going to be coming out here, and I think is going to be that staple second corner that we've needed. The Will Shepard from Vanderbilt coming out here, or LaJohntay Wester, who you've brought up. There are a handful of guys that I could see getting drafted, but right now it's Travis Hunter and Shador Sanders, and a big distance between anybody else on the roster, in my opinion.
Got it. Well, first of all, as always, it is a joy, it's a privilege, it is a pleasure to have you on with us. Tell everyone, David, where they can find your work and follow you and see what you're up to.
Yes, guys, thank you again so much for having me on. We got to make sure that we talk more this regular season, but
yes,
you can follow me on David Talks Buffs on Twitter. I'm also on there. I think my name on there is David Talks Sports, because I have David Talks Broncos that I also have a YouTube channel for. Kind of keep them separate. And yeah, your best way to reach me is probably on YouTube or on Twitter, but making videos every day. And I'll be expanding into some more Big 12 topics and stuff as the season gets started. But right now, it's mainly just Buffs. So thank you, guys.
Certainly. Understood. Brock, you want to tell people what you've been busy? You want to tell people what you've been working on also?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been doing my college football work. We're here with Team MBS Media. I've been covering the NFL for Rams Wire. So if you like like Los Angeles Rams, check them out. And just been making a lot of content. Been to Mountain West Media Day, trying to get to more media days, talk to more coaches. Definitely going to be doing a deeper dive into the Mountain West this season. So just keep an eye on that. And definitely when it comes to the Big 12, the thing that I've been kind of pushing is watch out. UNLV could be the next member of that conference sometime in the near future. So again, keep an eye out. The new Big 12 is a mix of the Southwestern Conference, the Big 8, and the Border Conference. Yep. So maybe they might sprinkle in a little Mountain West just to add a little spice to it. But, keep an eye out and keep bringing guys as much content as I can as we go along.
Excellent. So I am working on something as well. Hopefully I will have some of the young, up-and-coming, and non-traditional names in college football contributing in ways that they did not, and frankly were not allowed to contribute until a very, very, very recent time in college football. So don't want to give away too much, but I'm working on something that I think will be exciting and interesting. And I'm going to try to sort of build a little series around that about contributors that have not been contributing until very recently to college football. And then I'll start dropping some scouting related stuff, and I'll work on I don't know, I guess I'm going to have to rename my college football awards articles, because we've changed the name of the collective and the site. So I'm open for names for the for the awards. So if someone's got some great ideas about what we want to call our new college football awards, I'm open to it. But once again, everybody, we are back. I think we'll have Jeffrey Fan to talk ACC next week. I will confirm that very soon. Once again, on behalf of this very talented young gentleman, and then if you keep going that way, our amazing guest, David, I want to thank you all for joining us. As always, it is an honor. It is a privilege. It is a pleasure. And because we're back, we get to do this again very, very soon. And I will see you in 1 week.